what I happen to get out of the blue is the fastest moving cancer there is. It's called angiosarcoma. It does not happen to adults very often, but when it does, it's unstoppable.
Wow.
And the top cancer specialist in the state of Colorado pretty much told me it was all she wrote. I might have 4 months, and that was a couple months ago. And
Wow.
I called my roommate, Roger Nelson from McAllister College. And Roger, I roomed with him at McAllister College in St. Paul for a couple of years. And Roger is retired now down in Arizona. And he plays golf with a pretty good oncologist who was retired. He's retired from Stanford and also was at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. So Roger and this fellow play golf together. And a few weeks ago, I sent Roger everything that there was connected to my situation. And Roger called me back a week before last, and he said, Sam, he said, don't let anybody even try to blow smoke at you. He says, there's nothing that can stop this. He said, there's no radiation, there's no chemotherapy. There's nothing that can stop this. It's just plain gone. And he said, if anybody tries to tell you this, they're just blowing smoke at you, and you'll just suffer more pain, and there's nothing that'll slow it down. So I said, well, Roger, I think I'm going to go into hospice. And he said, that's a brilliant idea. He said, my wife went into hospice a few years ago when she was declared terminal. And so hospice takes care of you very well. And they basically just make it nice and comfortable until you pass away. Now, strangely enough, okay, my buddies, now you guys can understand it, but a lot of my buddies don't get this. I'm really happy to be able to be passing away. Oh my God, hey, joy, joy, joy. I'm happy. And I feel Dr. George, and I feel Baba, I feel all the great ones. And I feel my mom, my dad, my sister, and my Jerry Neal, Dr. George's assistant, came to me and he was chuckling, and he's saying, I'll be waiting for you. And then Sai Baba came to me one night, deep in the middle of the night, and he said, I will answer all your questions. And I said, hey, hot dog.
That sounds wonderful.
So I will be passed away one of these days, and I'm very, very happy about this. And it just is my time to go, and it's the plan, and I don't have any problems with it.
Wow.
I had a wife. I've been in all 50 states. I've been in 27 countries. I've been all over the place and done a lot of stuff. Got to play music all over this country and in Canada, and I just had a grand time. And not to mention, I've also had every problem and defeat, disaster, tribulation known to mankind.
Oh gosh.
That's part and parcel of the whole deal. And I feel very, very comfortable with that. This thing is working out a lot of karma and purifying a lot of stuff for me, so I can, get it done with. And I'm really pleased with it.
Wow. Wow.
Sam, are you able to meditate still?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I get high as a kite. Yeah. I'm happy.
Wow.
And I think most people are here now. They've finally joined us. So can you just share about Yogananda and Dr. George and your time being a disciple?
Well, I'll tell you, I was so lucky this lifetime. As I told all of you, my mother got me a copy of the autobiography of a yogi when I was about 16, and I started reading it. And I tried to meditate, and I got absolutely nowhere with my meditations. I was like hitting my head up against a brick wall. So I carefully read the fine print in the autobiography of a yogi, and I thought to myself, I need to get a real yogi master. So I applied for a scholarship to spend my junior year at the University of Benares, the holy city of India. And I was about a week away from going. And this Christian faith healer in St. Paul told me about Dr. George in Milwaukee. Said, how do you know he's a real yogi master? He said, my wife was dying and I could not help her. And I took the train to Milwaukee and I saw Dr. George and I asked him if he would pray for my wife. And he said, yes. So he sat me down and we meditated for about 2 hours. Then he touched my spiritual eye and he patted me on the head. Then he sent me back. And Ed, the healer, told me that every time he closed his eyes on the train back, he saw a white cross in front of his spiritual eye. And his wife was, in fact, healed.
Wow.
So that had happened in 1968, and it was now 1964. And I left St. Paul at 8 p.m. in the evening, and I drove all the way through to Milwaukee, about 350 miles. And it took me 12 hours, but I finally was able to find Dr. George. And I knew the minute I saw him that he was real. So that night I meditated with him, and that's the first night that I felt it. I felt the energy go up my spine. I felt my spiritual eye. It was the first time I had real metaphysical spiritual experience.
Wow.
So the next day I said to Dr. George, now here's one little humorous thing. I had told all my buddies and my pals from high school and college that I was going to India to find a real yogi master, and they thought I was absolutely, totally daft in 1964. So the next morning, I said to Dr. George, I said, I realized that he was in secret. And I said to him, I know who you are, and I would like you to be my teacher. He said, no, you should go to India to find a real yogi master. So I argued with him, and I had to argue with him quite a while. Then finally, his eyes gleamed, and whenever he spoke about master, his eyes would gleam. Oh, just beautifully. He smiled and he told me, okay. He said, I will help you. He said, Master told me you were coming. He sent you to me.
Wow.
So I drove up to Minnesota. I packed up everything I had and I moved to Milwaukee, and I blessed the day that I ran into Dr. George.
Wow.
He was a true saint, a true master. And
Sam, how did you, when you first met him, you said you knew he was the real deal just as soon as you saw him. What told you that?
I knew when I would meet my master that I would know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I knew that I would know.
Wow. Wow. That's wonderful.
Told me to go stay at Jerry's house. Jerry Neal was Dr. George's assistant. And sorry for my hair being a little messed up there. And so anyway, oh well.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's all good.
Jerry was an interesting case. He was in Chicago about 1954, 55. And he had a wife and 2 kids. He got a used copy of the autobiography of a yogi at a bookstore one time. Read it. Now, you'll find this fascinating. And see, Jerry and I discussed this on and off for years, and we never could figure out how this could happen. But the day that Jerry finished that used copy of the autobiography of a yogi, he received in the mail a 3-cent postcard from Dr. George in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, written in pencil that said, Jerry, I need your help. Dr. George, SRF, 5000 South 20th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wow.
And so Jerry drove up there and found Dr. George, and Dr. George said, Jerry, I need your help. And so he became his assistant. And Jerry
Oh.
was a great soul, and he really helped me a lot. And we had a lot of discussions about Dr. George. Let me tell you, we had a lot of discussions. So because it was so fascinating being around him and the oddball things he would do. I mean, let's talk about the building at 5000 South 20th Street. Now, at 20th Street was a street that went from Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee all the way to the southern end of Milwaukee. And 50 blocks was 5000 South 20th Street. And that's where Dr. George had 37 acres of land. And it was old, beautiful woods. And he had these buildings, this monstrosity of a building that he had built out of used lumber and used everything in the 1920s and 30s.
Wow.
Now, to tell you how big it was, he had as many as 18 or 19 families living there during the Depression.
Wow. Wow.
Right. And so in 1949, he conveyed the acreage to Yogananda, to SRF, and Yogananda was going to build a SRF center for the center of the United States there on those 30-some acres.
Wow.
But then, as you kind of know a little bit of the history of SRF, there's all kinds of things that happened. Yogananda got involved in the Lakeshore Shrine, which took up, a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of money. And then it was only shortly after that, right after that, that he passed away.
Yeah.
And Rajasi, who took over, Rajasi was basically in the higher consciousness for most of the last 3 years of his life. He really wasn't really with it too much. And so when he passed away in 1955, the three women took over: Sister Dia, her sister, and that other lady. And not to say anything, but just the fact that the SRF kind of started to become an organization at that time. And they really did not like Dr. George, and they really wanted his land. And so they treated Dr. George very shabbily. And, one little interesting, funny thing is that both Oliver Black and Dr. George told this story. And they used to visit Yogananda, and he would be on the second floor where his office was. And he would lean out the window, and Sister Dia's office was on the first floor. And he'd say, "Dia, Sister Dia." And she would lean her head out, and Yogananda would pour a glass of water on her. And Master said, both Oliver Black and Dr. George said that Master shook his head and said, "She never learns." Well, then you know what happened to beautiful Swami Kriyananda. I mean, my God, the mean torture they pulled on him. I mean, oh, Lord bless him. And what he did was just amazing. And Ananda Village is the spiritual successor to Yogananda, period. End of story. And I'm going to my demise saying that with total clarity. And well, life kind of went on, and they kept wanting that. So Dr. George just quit, and he formed his own church under the laws of Wisconsin, called it Self-Realization of Friendship Church of Wisconsin.
Wow.
And so they sent spies maybe twice a year. They would send spies looking in on us. And I will tell you, the first time I saw a spy was my first Christmas with Dr. George. And this lady came out, and she was very, very wealthy. She had a big, anyway, she was very wealthy with amazing clothes and so forth. And we went up to the farm at Friendship. Now, picture that building. Starting in 1958, Dr. George and the church started taking that building in Milwaukee down board by board, block by block, and hauled it with trucks and trailers up to Friendship, Wisconsin, where we had 80 acres where there was no building codes. And we built an ashram up there in the middle of the state of Wisconsin. And so we had Christmas up there one year, and there was about 20 people there along with this spy lady. And I was sitting at one end of the long table, and Dr. George was sitting at the other end. And my sister and another lady brought out baked potatoes, and Dr. George took one out, and then he looked at me down at the end of the table, and he said, "Sammy, do you want a baked potato?" So I said, "Yeah." So he picked it out and he threw it the length of the table, and I caught it. She looked in total complete shock and just about, and she took off the next day. She had had enough.
Oh, that's priceless.
I know. It went on for years like that. Well, finally, in 1966, I had gone out to breakfast with Dr. George, and we went over to 20th Street, and we had bought a new a church, which was over on Mangold Avenue in Milwaukee, and I had bought a house right across the street from the church. And Dr. George was in the middle. He told me he was buying a house right next to mine and across the street from the church. And then he told me, he said, "Sammy," he says, "I'm going to let him have the building and the acreage." So he signed. He retained life tenancy when he gave the building to SRF, so he was able to live there for the rest of his days. But that one day in 1966, he told me, he said, "I'm giving him the building." And so they took the building, they sold it, and it just got leveled, and they built it into a housing development, just like that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Sam, during those years, were you working or were you only in the ashram? Were you working outside? Were you singing, or what was
Well,
your...
what I did was from 1964 to 66, I worked sewer and water construction. Then I went back to college full-time during the day, and I worked a midnight to 8 job running a computer, and went to college full-time during the day and finished up my schooling.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, and now my sister was totally deaf from birth, and she had an incurable eye disease. She was going blind. And it was very shocking to my mom and dad and to me. And I moved to Milwaukee when Dr. George told me that Master had sent me. I drove back to Minnesota and packed up everything I had and moved to Milwaukee. A month and a half later, my mom and sister drove down. Now, back when Gail went to a school for the deaf where they taught you to read lips. So you would talk like this, and she could read lips.
Wow.
And then she could talk also. So she told my mom and dad that at that hearing school for the deaf, she came home during the summertime on Easter and at Christmas. And she told my mom and dad that when she was lonesome at night and everybody was asleep at that school for the deaf, a kind man would stand at the end of the bed and speak to her and make her feel. Well, I was curious about that, but my mom said, "Just don't bother her about it. Just let it go." And so when my mom and Gail came down to visit me in Milwaukee and check out Dr. George and check out the church and so forth, my mom and I were standing by her car after the service, and Gail walked across the street and came up to us and pointed over to Dr. George, and she said, "That's the man."
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
I couldn't even tell that story for years.
Wow.
And,
So sweet.
so Gail moved to Milwaukee, and I got a house, and she lived with me. And then she loved Dr. George. Dr. George loved her, and my mom loved Dr. George, and Dr. George really loved my mom. My dad never did really understand the whole thing, but he was a good guy. He was a good guy. And in February 2nd, 1967, I was at work running the computer at about 3:30 in the morning, and my boss called me and told me to turn off the computer, and some men were coming to pick me up, and it was two Milwaukee City policemen who picked me up, and they didn't say a word, and they drove me, and we got out to my house, and there was fire trucks all over the place, and my house had burned down, and Gail had never woken up. She had passed away, and she had asphyxiated in the fire.
Wow. Wow.
She passed away in the fire. So now here's the interesting thing about Dr. George. So George wasn't the biggest talker in the world, and he wanted you to get things inwardly. And once you got things inwardly, then he would confirm it outwardly. So when Gail passed away, Dr. George just patted me on the shoulder and patted me on the head. And so I asked Divine Mother, and I told Divine Mother, I said, I'm meditating every morning and every night. I meditate sometimes when I'm working on the computer. And I said, I will be waiting. I'll be waiting. I want an answer. I don't want to just like some little platitude. I want to understand. I want to know why. I really want to understand. Master said that you could receive truth in the atoms of your being. And I said, I want this truth in the atoms of my being. I want to know. So years went by, about 2.5 years went by. And at our farm, we had a lot of dead oak trees. Interestingly, a biological fact, botanical fact, the pine trees that occupied our 80 acres overrode the pine trees and caused them to pass away. So we had a lot of dead oak trees, and they were really good for firewood, and they were really good for building. So one of my jobs was to harvest oak trees. So it was summertime, and it had been 2.5 years since I started asking Divine Mother, and I was harvesting some oak trees, and I sat down to lean against a tree, and wham, a deer ran right by me, and I had a vision. I had one of the most marvelous visions I ever had, and it's one of my big complaints. I just wish that we could hold on. There's somebody trying to get to me.
Take your time, Sam, if you're still hearing us.
Yes, I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So I had an amazing vision, and Divine Mother came to me, and I saw that my sister chose to come in that form, and I saw that she chose to leave in that form, and I chose that this was her last compulsory lifetime.
Wow.
And I saw that she had spent a long lifetimes with Yogananda, with Dr. George, and that Master had asked George to lead her, to help her complete her final lifetime.
Wow.
Then I also saw that she wanted me to always think of her as perfect. Then I also saw that she had been a queen. All the relatives and family used to always say that she had a regal walk about her and it was very queenly. And I saw that she actually had been a queen. Well, and then once you know, after I had experienced that, Dr. George came right up to me and told me chapter and verse what I had just experienced.
Gosh.
Wow.
He confirmed it all to me.
Oh,
Wow.
that's amazing.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible.
And then years went by, and Janny is a very, very, very good psychic. And I would say about, 69, 20 years after that vision, Janny and I were meditating, and Dr. George came to me through Janny. And she is very good, gets very good guidance. And Dr. George confirmed the vision again. And then he said to me, he said, I just wanted to tell you one thing, that her name in that lifetime was Marie of Denmark, and she was the wife of Alexander II, Tsar of Russia.
Wow.
So he said, you can go down to the St. Paul Library and you can read about her and see pictures of her. So I did. I went down to the St. Paul Library on that Saturday, and the librarians helped me find all that data about her.
Wow. Amazing.
Did her pictures look familiar?
Not that much, no.
Hmm. Hmm.
But she was attractive. Gail was very beautiful. The
Hmm.
Denmark was very pretty.
Hmm. Wow. Wow.
Sam, do you have any other stories about Master with Dr. George, how they met or anything like that?
Yes. Yogananda was walking down Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee in the early 1920s. He was delivering his classes at the Schroeder Hotel in downtown Milwaukee. And George was a young man walking the other way. And Yogananda said, George, come to my meeting tonight. Never seen him before. And so George was at meeting, and Yogananda wrote George a letter in 1938. And he said that George is you're a master of yoga, and you should be addressed in a title of respect. And so we called him Master George, but we also called him Dr. George. Now, let me explain the reason why. Long way back in his early days, he had the healing power. And people came from all over to ask for healings of various and sundry things. And he healed many, many people of various and sundry things.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of interesting.
Amazing.
And I could tell you that Dr. George was very selfless and very humble. And well, I told you about how I fell from 12 feet and landed on my head on concrete. And I was ostensibly dead. The surgeon said I would be dead or a vegetable. And Bill and Fred, who rode with Dr. George up to the hospital in Marshfield, Wisconsin, said that Dr. George walked in, told the head surgeon, who was Muslim, told him, patch him up as best you can. I'll be sitting here. And he sat there for many, many hours.
Hmm.
And then my mom and dad got down from Minnesota, and the doctors told them that I would be dead or a vegetable. And George told them no. And he told the head surgeon, he said, Sam will be fine as long as you allow his mother to stay in the room with him. So this head surgeon, bless his heart, allowed my mother to stay in the room with him. And he asked George why. And Dr. George said, because a mother's prayers are the strongest.
Wow.
So my mom stayed in the room with me for 35 days. And then I woke up. And so now my dad loved to tell the story. When I was working on the side of that building, I was listening to the Chicago Cubs play the St. Louis Cardinals. But about 35 days had passed, and I woke up, and my dad and mom were watching a baseball game. So I just started watching the game. And I was thinking to myself, I had no idea why I was lying there. And so I looked at it was the St. Louis Cardinals, Bob Gibson pitching, and they said the next batter for the Detroit Tigers will be Norm Cash. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, why are the Tigers playing the Cardinals? They're in different leagues. So I said to my dad, I said, hey, Pop, how come St. Louis is playing Detroit? My dad just about fell off the chair backward. My mom crazy. you know, the first thing Sam asked about when he woke up was baseball.
Oh God, that's priceless. I love it.
I was up for 2 days, and Dr. George came in. I hadn't even been out of the bed yet. Dr. George came in to see me, and he said, come on, get up. So he got me out of the bed, unplugged me from all the different machinery and everything. And he walked me down the hall, and there was a pool table in the waiting room or waiting area. And George and I were playing pool. And then the nurses came running, and they just about went apoplectic. And they said, you can't do that. You know, so they whipped me in a wheelchair, and they whipped me back to my bed and got me back to the bed. And Dr. George's eyes were gleaming, and he was smiling.
Oh my God, that's just priceless.
Amazing. Oh my
Lord.
goodness.
So the doctors would not believe that I was okay. They absolutely scientifically would not believe it. So I kept arguing with them, and I kept telling them, look, I'm fine. And I said, it was a miracle of God. What do you expect? They happen once in a while. And I said, I'm just need to get out of here. So finally, it was 2 weeks, and they made me sign all this paperwork that indemnified from everything. So I finally got out of that hospital, and they gave me a big box of medicines, and I took them down to our church farm, and I showed the medicines to Dr. George, and George said they would make very good firewood. So I threw them in the fireplace down in the basement.
Oh my Lord, amazing. So did you feel like he had directly healed you himself?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I remember this infinite white, searing white cosmic joy. So I asked Dr. George, I said, why did you bring me back? And he said, you have a lot of work to do. He says, you have a lot of impurities, a lot of flaws. He said, you have a lot of karma to work out. Then and it was later in the following week, he was telling me about lifetimes as a soldier and how I had to, he said, you have come this life to be unarmed. You must do it with love and with forgiveness.
Wow.
So that was the big thing about Dr. George. Dr. George used to say over and over and over and over. And every talk just about, he said, you must learn to forgive unconditionally. You can't meditate if you cannot forgive.
Wow. Say that one more time. You cannot what?
You can't meditate if you cannot forgive.
Wow. Wow. That's quite an aphorism.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wow.
And, you know, one of the things Jerry and I used to discuss was this one. And what Dr. George told us one time, Jerry and I were sitting with him up at the farm, and we were having coffee. And Dr. George said, yeah, he said, late after they built Encinitas, I was out there at Encinitas, and we chanted deep into the night, and Master told me to come down to the ocean. And I followed him down to the ocean, and he walked out onto the ocean, and he said, come on, George, come on, George. And George told us, I didn't do that because I was afraid. Now, Jerry and I thought about that for weeks and weeks. And every once in a while we get together and we just pondered that. And I say, let's see what you come up with. I'll see what I come up with. And then one day, Jerry and I hooked up, and we both came up to each other. We said, I think Master was testing George. Yogananda told George, quote, never let them know who you are. And so we felt that this was a test that Master George was giving, that Yogananda was giving Dr. George, that he would use his powers, kind of show off like that in a sense.
Right.
And so when Jerry and I discussed that and agreed that that was how we interpreted it, not long after that, the next time we saw Dr. George, he came up to the two of us and he looked at us and his eyes gleamed and he nodded his head yes.
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh.
He was the real deal. a true yogi master.
He really was. And yeah, Dr. George was something else.
Mhm.
When yeah, he just now we had a fellow named Waldo Moe was his name, and came from a Swedish family, and he was a big, large, hefty guy. He worked for International Harvester in Chicago, and he had gone to engineering school in Pittsburgh. And in 1926, he was there while Yogananda was giving his talk at I forget what institute it was. And Waldo was one of those guys, the 6 biggest guys in the audience that got up with a rope, and Yogananda held the other end of the rope. And Yogananda said, "You people have weak wills. And he said, you need to have strong will to persist in the spiritual path and to attain liberation." And he said, I want you to show how I have a strong will. He says, "I'm holding this rope, and these 6 men here will not be able to move me." And Waldo said they yanked and yanked and jerked and jerked and jerked on that rope, and Master just stood there calmly and laconically just holding that rope, and they couldn't move him.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Amazing.
And when I was in my first year with Dr. George, I met Waldo. I really liked Waldo because Waldo was a real character, and he told a lot of jokes, and he was very, very, very funny. And Waldo came to me one time and he said, "Sam," he said, "I just want you to know," he said, "that your Dr. George there is a real saint."
Hmm.
And so then Waldo told many times about how he and Dr. George used to drive to California with an old Model T or a Model A Ford, and it took 3 weeks to get there from Milwaukee to play.
Oh my God. Amazing. Oh.
did Dr. George ever visit Yogananda?
Oh, regularly. Yeah, all through from the 20s on, all through up until he passed away.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
It's good they kept in touch
And
outwardly as well as inwardly.
you could find the old SRF magazines from the 40s and 50s. Dr. George was the SRF minister for Milwaukee and Chicago.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Sam, how are you doing? Do you want to call it a night here? Are you getting tired?
Well, I'm just going to tell a couple more little stories, and then I'll pack it in. But thank you. I am. This is probably about all I can do. The other thing that I was so lucky about this lifetime, and was being able to hook up with Sai Baba, and going over to India 6 times and having 3 interviews and having many, many miracles. One time we filmed over 100 and some people that Sai Baba materialized matter for out of nothing. He would wave his hand like this, and he materialized vibhuti for me just like this twice, and materialized the ring for me. And he now just recently, when I was declared terminal, my Sai Baba ring disappeared that he had materialized for me. It dematerialized, and I was meditating and asking why, and in the middle of the night, Sai Baba smiled and he said, "It was holding you back."
Oh.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
But
Wow.
the Sai Baba is just love, and just love. Unbelievable. I couldn't even begin. One time I was down in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Shirley MacLaine had asked me to raise money for her for a movie project, and I actually failed. I just couldn't raise it, and so Anyway, she had a house by the ocean, and she and I walked for 2.5 hours by the ocean, and she would not stop walking until I told her all my Sai Baba, or as many of my Sai Baba miracle stories as I could.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's sweet.
I said, "Well, why don't you go over there?" And she said, I'm too old and I will get very sick." And she said, "It's just too dangerous." And
Oh,
my friend, she said, "My friend Goldie Hawn has gone over there and gotten sick every single time." And I said, "Yeah, I understand. I know." I said, I watch it like a hawk. And India is not a real friendly place to go, let me tell you.
mhm.
And then, so anyway, she's a wonderful lady, very, very nice lady, great lady.
Hmm.
When I first heard about Sai Baba and I got a book with his picture on it, I came back to Milwaukee. Now, as I've told you, whenever Dr. George talked about Master, his eyes would do that special gleam, like the cosmic consciousness. It's just like you could see the infinite in his eyes whenever he talked about Master.
Hmm.
So and his whole body would just I don't know, just like melt.
Hmm.
So when I found out about Sai Baba in Los Angeles from a bunch of people, I showed Dr. George this book and I said, "What's your thoughts?" And Dr. George's eyes gleamed and he said, "Wonderful, wonderful."
Hmm.
And then a Sai Baba lady from LA had heard about Dr. George and came out and she said that George was a great yogi master and wanted to spend the rest of her life at his feet. And so she had a hard time going to India also, but she loves Sai Baba. But she asked Dr. George if she could set up a Sai Baba center in his church, and he said yes, every Thursday night. So that's been going now since 1976, and they still have the Sai Baba Center at Dr. George's church.
Wow.
Yeah, 46 years later. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. What a
And then
kid.
I was feeling a little bit guilty because I have my meditation group, and I was concerned about my loyalty to Dr. George and to Yogananda, and so I was asking for weeks and weeks and weeks. I was asking, I got to have guidance on this. You got to make sure I'm doing okay, because I'm getting real close to Sai Baba and love him very dearly. And Master Yogananda came to me, and they looked at me, and they were very, very kindly, and their eyes just kind of gleamed, and they smiled, and they said, this is what they said, and I'll never forget it. They said, "What kind of friends would we be to you if we tried to keep you from having a chance to meet with the great avatar of the age?" And I said, "Oh, thank you. Thank you." I just got total relief.
Mhm.
There was a long time SRF fellow. He was quite remarkable, and boy, what was his name? Wonderful man. Oh, he's a beautiful speaker. And I used to get high as a kite visiting. He was down in the San Diego area, but he was sitting in his first interview with Sai Baba. He had heard about Sai Baba, and he was a Kriya Yoga. And Sai Baba, he told me, he said, Sai Baba looked at him and said, "Oh, Yogananda," he said, "very good, very good." And so he, it was kind of cool.
Sweet. Wow.
And Bob Raymer, who I've told you about, Bob Raymer was the first head of the Saba Organization of America.
Wow.
And Bob Raymer was also a minister of SRF, and they treated him very shabbily. They fired him. They fired him because he divorced his first wife. Bob used to have a nice center in his condo on the top floor on Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica there with a beautiful deck and the most incredible view. And boy, I used to go over there and meditate, and we would just get high as a kite meeting with Bob.
Mhm.
And Bob had flown his own airplane out as a young man to see Master in December of 1951. And Master said, I cannot be your guru, because he said, I am leaving the earth fairly soon, but if you want to get it, you go see Dr. George in Milwaukee.
Wow.
So, and later in 1952, he flew his airplane down to Milwaukee and found that big old monstrosity of a building and saw this incredible monstrosity. Bob had grown up as the only heir of a very wealthy fortune. And so Bob used to tell us, he says he was shocked when he saw this building, and he came into the place and it was dusty and nothing was straight, nothing was level. And there were so many rooms, he couldn't figure them out. And Dr. George was wearing old clothes and just like an old, hobo almost. And Dr. George patted Bob on the shoulder and said, Bob, why don't you come here and lie down on the couch for just a little while and rest, and then we'll talk. And Bob said he lied down on the couch, and the Shakti went up his spine and opened up his spiritual center. And he also thought as he came there, maybe Master wants me to help this fellow. And as he's lying there in that bed, he says, this guy doesn't need my help.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Once a month for 3.5 years, he flew down to Milwaukee to see Dr. George. And then Dr. George blessed him. Bob told me this. He blessed him on the spiritual eye and the top of the head, and said, Bob, you're okay now. You're on your own. And he said, Master and I will help you. And he said, you're all set. And he said, you're a teacher. And so Bob was a very good spiritual teacher.
Wow. Wow.
And when J. Oliver Black passed away, he asked Bob to take over the Song in the Morning Ranch for him.
Yeah.
Sam, who's running Dr. George's church in Milwaukee?
Well, there's a fellow named Richard Bowen, and he's running it, and they're kind of keeping it going a little bit. They're doing it as best they can.
Nice.
Good.
Good.
So is there anything we can do for you, Sam?
You know, I want to tell you something. What if I send my friend Mary Lou's from what's the name of the country? Begins with an A.
Guatemala.
Guatemala, yes. Is that you, Mary Lou's?
Yes, I've been here for a while.
Sure, okay. Mary Lou's, I want you to, these are, along with Narayan in Los Angeles, and along with Nirmala and her husband, these are your new friends. And I want you to, I'm turning you over to them. Okay?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you
We're
so much.
We're very happy to meet you.
Mary
Me
Lou
too.
is a great saint and a great sage. She is truly a very advanced being. So, and she loves Dr. George.
We're happy to know you. Happy to meet
Me
you.
too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam, for introducing me to your friends. And thank you for this opportunity. I'm sorry I cannot put my hands together. I'm holding the phone with one hand.
That's okay. That's okay.
Just keep your heart open. It's all right.
Okay.
I'll call you on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I want to thank all of you people for visiting me tonight. And the only thing I ask of you is just know, just be close to Swami Kriyananda, be close to Master, be close to Master George, and just know that I love you dearly, and I'm very, very happy to be passing away. And so I'll be watching over you from the other side, and you will be, I'll be waiting for you.
Thank
Oh,
you,
Thank you,
Sam.
Sam.
thank you,
We're so
Sam.
grateful. You'll be
So
waiting
grateful.
for us.
Oh,
We
yeah,
love you too.
And before we sign off, let's everybody unmute and let's do an Om blessing for our dear friend Sam,
thank you.
Okay, let's do that.
soaring in light. So let's do Yogananda's prayer first. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent, thou art in Sam. Manifest thy healing presence in his body, mind, and soul.
Rub our hands together.
Divine Mother and all the masters bless you, Sam,
Thank
and
you.
all our love to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All our love to you, Sam. We love you.
Love you. Love all you guys.
Go
Love
to
you.
the light, Sam. Go into the light. God bless you.
Thank you.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
And
Jai Guru.
Blessings, Sam.
Thank you.
so, dear ones, we will continue with Michelle leading a kirtan for those of you who would like to stay. And thank you so much for joining us. And do keep Sam in your prayers. I don't know if all of you got the beginning story, but he has an incurable cancer and the doctors have given him 4 months to live and he's 2 months into that. So, but he has his cognitive abilities still, as you can see. He's very happy and joyful. And let's keep praying for his continued grace in God and Divine Mother. Thank you all for being here. And there's Dr. Michelle, who will lead us in a kirtan now for those who would like to stay.
Dear ones, thank you so much, Sam. That was beautiful hearing your stories, and I too send my blessings and love. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thought I'd start this evening with one of Yogananda's whispers from eternity called the Cosmic Salutation. O Spirit, I bow to thee in front of me, behind me, on the left and on the right. I bow to thee above and beneath. I bow to thee all around me. I bow to thee within and without me. I bow to thee everywhere, for thou art omnipresent. This is number 125. From peak to peak and heart to heart, I will fly, singing thy name. Bless me, my Father, so that I may fly with thee from peak to peak, or lie on the grass and sing thy song to the birds. Bless me that I may wade through human hearts to bring them the song of thy glory. Bless me that I may whirl around the starry rim and blaze thy name. With the nebulae I will spread thy holy name. Bless me that with the humming atoms I may time my song with thine. Let's chant Jai Guru. Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Guru Jai Paramhansa Yogananda 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 Jai Guru Jai. Lord, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. eyes alike in daylight and in gloom. My eyes were long blinded by the tinsel glitter of material things. Always seeing such things outwardly, I saw not that the spirit within their bosom. I looked at the mustard seed of matter, but spied not the oil of spirit hidden within it. The third eye of my wisdom is now being opened. Keep it thou always open. Let that single eye of realization lead me to behold, through all the veils of matter, the infinite presence of Christ everywhere. Bless me that the sacred wise thoughts in me, following this star of knowledge, meet the Christ in everything. We'll chant What Lightning Flash. My life is for the Lord, who is untouched by desires of his worlds. He whose enchanting images beyond compare, and who is joy personified, who is joy personified. Wonderful light of our universe, and the universe beyond phenomena, beyond phenomena. The light of my life is you. Wonderful life of this universe, and life beyond. The light of my life is you. The light of my life is you. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee I am thrilled through and through. My life is for the Lord, who is untouched by desires of his worlds. He whose enchanting images beyond compare, and who is joy personified, who is joy personified. Wonderful light of our universe, and the universe beyond phenomena, beyond phenomena. The life of my life is you. Wonderful life of this universe, my life is you. The life of my life is you. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. My life is for the Lord, who is untouched by desires of his words. He whose enchanting images beyond compare, and who is joy personified. Who is joy personified. Wonderful life of our universe, and the universe beyond phenomena, beyond phenomena. The life of my life is you. Wonderful life of this universe and life beyond. The life of my life is you. The life of my life is you. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. What lightning flash glimmers in thy face, Mother? What lightning flash glimmers in thy face? Seeing thee, I am thrilled through and through. 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 my heart open wide, I keep for thee. We'll chant this and then we'll meditate for about 7 to 10 minutes. And then we'll end our evening with a short chant and a prayer. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee. Friends, our evening has come to a close, and I just want to thank Sam again for sharing all those wonderful stories with us. Let's close by sending all the joy and upliftment and peace and inspiration that we felt from this evening out into this world. All those who so badly need it at this time. Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing presence in all bodies, minds, and souls. Oh. 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 Om. Peace. Amen. God bless you, dear ones.